Hello, everybody. This is Sam J. You're listening to Sam J Has Questions. My guest today was stand-up comedian and actor Danny Jolles. Danny Jolles has a podcast called Everything But the Scores. I highly recommend checking it out. He was hesitant to start a podcast. We go through that. He's only maybe 4 or 5 episodes in at this point. Definitely go on, rate and review, do that whole thing. It's a podcast about everything but the scores in sports. I'm not a huge sports fan, but Danny and his sometimes he has guests. They were able to talk about issues and news in sports that doesn't typically get covered on ESPN, and I was fascinated by it. I highly recommend checking out the episode about the Rally Cat. So Danny Jolles is a stand-up comedian and actor. He recently made his late-night debut on Stephen Colbert. He's also been on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, so you can check him out on those things. Give him a Google. He's got some really funny videos at the Laugh Factory YouTube channel as well, so check out Danny's comedy. I really enjoyed it. I'd seen him perform at the Improv Lab during a Team Coco takeover a few months ago, and he started this joke in this room, and I go into it in the episode, but this room was not particularly warmed for comedy. It was a hard room, and all of the comics on the show were really having an issue. The crowd just wasn't really into it, and I really appreciated Danny's approach to that situation. And I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. He had some really fun jokes, and he had a joke that the setup. I think he only got through the setup, and he realized the crowd was not gonna feel it. The crowd wasn't digging it, so he bailed, and I was so bummed out. And I definitely need to see Danny perform live again so I can see the rest of that joke. So go and check out Danny, see him live. And without further ado, check out the episode. Thank you. This is very Larry King. I'm missing suspenders, and
it feels lovely.
Feels good?
Yeah.
Well,
thank you. Piece of paper.
Thank you for being here, Danny.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I have some questions for you. Shall we get started? Well, briefly introduce yourself.
Oh, sure. Hi, my name is Danny Jolles. I'm a comedian and actor and person about town, I guess. And do you want to say credits or just who I am? Originally from Virginia. Now I'm out here trying to make my way as a person.
And you have your World Series champs
hat on? I basically haven't taken this off since the Washington Nationals won. It's been the highlight of my life. I've never been so happy in my entire life.
I didn't watch any of the games but the last 2 innings of the entire baseball for that whole year. So I feel like I saw the good part.
I watched... But see, you say that. But I watched hours upon hours all year long, not to mention the years I've put into supporting this team.
Okay.
And so the only way I can describe it is it's like watching because the franchise has been around for about 15 years. It's been a 15-year TV show that paid off in the most epic, incredible way. There is nothing that can describe how unbelievably happy I was. I was crying. I cried a lot. Still cry. Still will watch highlights and cry. It was the best time.
Oh, wow.
It was the best.
When did you know, how soon did you know, oh my God, they might have a chance? What was the turn?
Well, the team had always had a come from behind thing, but in the top of the 7th, we went up 3-2, and that was big. And I was like, okay, that's for real. I think in the top of the 9th, maybe top of the 8th, we went up 6-2. At 6-2, I was like, this is good, but honestly, I just was until it was over, I couldn't. I just
didn't want to jinx it.
Oh yeah, because I've had my heart ripped out 200 times. You watch sports, you get your heart ripped out a whole bunch because you're very good at losing. So I was ready to have my heart ripped out, and then I didn't.
So get good at losing. I feel like that's what comedians have to have as well, and just maybe people in general. And
I think everybody in life.
So, but what can you describe maybe the similarities and differences between losing in sports versus whatever loss can be as a stand-up or,
as a comic? I mean, there's things you apply for all the time. I know people who apply for things and they cannot accept they didn't get them. I think sports, there's a moment in sports where the whistle blows, or in baseball the final out happens, and you just go, oh, is it? There is no, you kind of, is there a ref or a flag or something? There's got to be something.
Yeah.
And then you have that moment of like, we lost. It's over. When you play sports, you get used to that. When you watch sports, you get used to that of, it's over. The thing I wanted to have happen didn't happen. And now my life has to go on. And even more so when you play sports, you get used to that idea of like, I lost. I think I got to work harder. And the same things with stand-up of you apply for things constantly. You get rejected most of the time. And then you have to have that moment of like, okay, I'm just going to work hard, get better.
Yeah.
Try to win tomorrow. The Nationals had a phrase. I can't believe I'm talking so much about them.
But they have this huge Nationals hat on. I believe
baby.
You're talking about it.
But they had a phrase that I have up on my wall right now. But they had a phrase that said, "Go 1-0 today," and I loved that. And I like continue to like try to. It's like changed. It's like in many ways, I'm like, oh, that's a good life philosophy of like go 1-0, just win today. And like some days you lose, and you're like, ah, and you wake up next day and you're like, I had a bad set last night, whatever, and then you just remember like, but let's go 1-0 today. Let's just win today. I feel like I haven't really tried to adopt that. I think it's a good way to deal with losing.
Okay.
Let's be like, well, you didn't lose today. You can still win today. Let's win today.
What are some of the bad ways to deal with losing?
People who get bitter. I think that's the biggest problem in stand-up right now. Not a big problem in stand-up, but one big issue in stand-up is so many people are bitter because they didn't get stuff. And I'm like, yeah.
That's your problem.
That's what it is, man. Hollywood this ain't fair.
Yeah, you're not.
This game ain't fair.
You're not entitled to that.
No one's entitled to winning this game. And nobody's entitled to winning multiple times. You can win a bunch for years. There are people I know have won for years and just for the first time really experiencing losing in this town. And they struggle. It's just like, man, nothing's guaranteed. No one promised you anything. It sucks. There are things you go in for where you're like, I think I am genuinely the right choice for this. And sometimes you don't get it. And it's like, it isn't that you're not allowed to be upset, but people get bitter and they get angry and it starts affecting them and they start getting, you know, comics who just like, just whine. And I'm just like, it's no good.
Yeah.
No good to get bitter. Doesn't do anything for anybody.
Do you catch yourself?
Of course, all the time.
What's the talk that you self-talk for that? Or do you acknowledge it's happening and you go, oh shit, that's why?
I go, oh, I'm bitter, I'm angry. Other times where I'm like, I'll just be like, oh, I'm angry on stage. I'm not being myself. I'm not doing what I want to do. I'm not. There's so much of comedy. Yeah, it's just like, and I think that's a big part of doing stand-up comedy is literally just being like, mentally, am I putting out a good vibe on stage? Am I being nice to other comics? Am I being the kind of person I'd want to see around? Am I being supportive of others? There's a thing with, bitterness comes with also like, I see this a lot where somebody gets something over you and people just sort of get jealous towards them. And I'm always like, don't be that person. Don't be that. And you also know what it's like to get something and have people be bitter towards you and be like, oh, you know what happened? This isn't up to me. They just picked me and other things they didn't pick me for, you saw it. So I just think in general, I think learn it today. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win, and sports I think gives you a very nice baseline of that experience, which stand-up is a lot of. It's a lot of losing in this game.
Yeah.
Mostly.
I feel like the hardest part for me is not necessarily like if we're just talking about stand-up.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the losing, but it's when you just have an okay.
Yeah.
When it's just like, okay, that's it. Like I didn't crush, I didn't finish hard, and I didn't bomb because I'm still like charming enough to like carry some sort of energy and charisma crowd work. But it was just like, I used to think like there's nothing worse than just like a mediocre
I think
set.
I also think though there's a sliding scale of bomb. Like I've always like I like people now are like, I've been doing it a while, and there are people who are like, you never bomb, and I'm like, why bomb for me? It's like, yes, I will never just forget how to hold a microphone like I did for the first basically 4 years I did this of like, just how do I even talk into this thing? I'll never have that happen. But like, there are times where I get off stage and people are like, that was good. And I'm like, that was to me a bomb. Like I did not, I know my standards now. And I think my standards are fair for me at this juncture in my career. And that was not good.
Do you think your set in the lab for the Coco takeover, was that a bomb in your books?
No,
it wasn't though.
That was
glad you said that.
No, that was a fight. Again, it's a sliding scale bomb. So that was a room where I was like, okay, we're not going to, the notion of me getting a standing ovation, of like a big, this was for those that weren't there, which is probably, I would assume,
Everyone who was in the audience that listens to this podcast.
This is all 12 of them. It was a bad setup. It was a bad situation. Conan had put together these amazing nights. A lot of shows were amazing. This one was a little tough. I was about half full of the Hollywood Improv Lab, which is a tough room as is. Packed to the lab can be tough.
It was that, but there was actually people in there.
There was it was 3/4 full, I would say, maybe, right?
They had a nice little square.
They had a nice square.
Nice square of tables.
It wasn't empty, but people just weren't getting them. And it was really tough. And I went up there with the sliding scale of like, but I also, really started slow in my career. And as a result, I did a lot of really tough bars. So I know that setup. I know the setup of, okay, the goal isn't to get them to lose their mind. The goal is, let's get them into comedy. Let's get them into the idea. Let's get them into laughing. Mm-hmm. And I went up there with that goal that night. I thought I accomplished it. I was mad. I had to pull the plug on one joke, which always hurts.
I was so disappointed.
I know. It sucked. But it wasn't going to work. And I knew it, and it wasn't what they wanted. And I was like...
I don't think they knew what they wanted.
They gave it when they liked it, like
you acknowledged it though.
Yeah,
I feel like you were able to.
That joke's also got a lot more. There was a joke called "Show Your Work," which I have been doing. If you haven't seen it around town,
go see it.
Go see this.
I need to see the rest of it.
It's very fun. But the "Show Your Work" joke, it takes a while, and I just knew there was a lot more to go, and it wasn't going to turn around. At best, they're going to have a mediocre time with it, and I was like, let's pull the plug, let's get it. Let's get this ship righted.
The setup was all there. I don't even know how far you were in, but it was like...
I was right to the part where it starts really paying off too.
God.
But I was like, we just have to. It wasn't going to work.
I don't even know what you said after that. I feel like you were just like, oh, let me talk about this other...
I said,
some other throwaway.
No, I think I did did I do Matumbo after?
Yeah, I did Matumbo.
I did Matumbo. That's a classic Danny save joke. And then I did something else. I was just fighting. But a fight is a good thing for a comic.
Yeah, I mean, there are those save jokes you have, and whether or not you're like, okay, this is at least something I can finish on a laugh and just leave. Mm-hmm. And I mean, let's maybe figure out what is your mindset when you're starting? Like, how do you pick the first joke you're going to do? Is it based on this is me, this is like a joke about me, or what's your normal
I really try to, as often as I can, genuinely, I think comedy is at its best when it's present and in the room. So I really try to, there are probably about 4 jokes that I'm like, these are my go-to starters. But I really try to be like, what does this room need? Like that room, I think...
I don't know what it needed. I
started just sort of calling it out. I just wanted to call out the room. And then I think I said the joke about not picking on people in the crowd, which is a joke I do a lot when I feel like a room has a bad energy because it makes them feel like I'm not going to pick on them because a lot of times,
that's right. Yeah.
And I really wanted them to loosen. So I was like, let me make that joke out of the gates. It gets a laugh, but also it accomplishes the goal. Sometimes if I can piggyback off a comic before me, that's a great opener.
Yeah.
That's the dream opener.
Yeah, whether it's
piggyback,
whether it's acknowledging how bad it was or the oddness or
if someone mentions something and I go, oh, I could swing that into this joke. I love that. I like when a crowd isn't sure when I've started material.
Okay.
And so I don't know. That's always my my only goal when I go up there is be present and be in the room. And with that room, I was like, this room right now is low. So let's just be present. Let's be in the room and let's try to fight them to however high I can get them by the time I get off stage.
So, I mean, I feel like, yeah, you experience those battles, so to speak, and you go over it. You have different techniques to start. You're getting better at reading the room. How did you go into taping for Colbert? Because that's not a scenario that you've performed in. I hope you don't have to fight a live TV audience. You don't,
but doing late night is a very weird experience because have you done late night?
No, I have not. I've seen someone do it when I went when Quincy Jones did his Conan taping.
Yeah, so you can attest to the experience a little bit of basically like people think late night is given out easily. It's a thing you work incredibly hard for, and it is, and you show up for that day, and it's like you go up there and you're like, first off, it feels weird. It's a weird shaped room. You don't ever perform in a room like that.
Yeah.
And then you get on the stage and you're like, cool, you're going to stand right here. And it's like halfway back on stage, which you're like, I would never do. I would never stand this far away from the crowd. I'm so far, but you're so separated. And Ed Sullivan Theater, where you do Colbert, you're so far back from them. And then they're like, the lights are going to be up on the crowd, basically, because they're going to kind of cut to the crowd at times. So you're like, so the lights are up in the crowd. Everything feels wrong.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about a Colbert, my experience with late night / every taping I've done has been like that. I just always go, that's why you do this as often as you do it.
That's why you do
that's why you put in
stand-up in
10,000
general?
hours.
Yeah.
That's why you do the hours. Because everything feels wrong and everything feels weird and there's so much pressure and you're so nervous. It's so nerve-wracking.
How many times did you run your set?
So I did the bro joke on Colbert, which is a joke I loved. I had done that. That was a joke that did a lot for my career. It got me like JFL, a bunch of stuff. I love that joke.
So that was a set that you had that set taped before, just from any other show?
I just had always done. So I do long jokes. So that bro joke was one joke. That is one thought.
Yeah.
And so I had done that one thought 1,000 times. We had to change the wording on the ending. That was it. But other than that one word change, I had done it 1,000 times. I felt extremely confident in my ability to do the joke. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the biggest thing I worked on beforehand was performing in a suit. I did a bunch of shows around town in suits. Nobody could figure out what I was doing.
How did you find it?
What do you mean?
What was the, like, how many suits did you choose from? Like, what did...
My girlfriend took me to a suit.
And that was it?
Yeah.
She was like, here, Danny,
she told me what to buy. And I wore Capitals tie. That was the only thing I got to choose. And
I was asking about the tie.
And she was livid. Everybody was livid. I wore a Capitals tie.
Why is he wearing that tie?
Because they won a Stanley Cup. They just won the Stanley Cup. And I had to show my support for my Caps.
So there was people in there who knew what it was. And they were like, all right.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, nobody actually cares what kind of tie it is. But for those that did, it mattered. It's cool.
Yeah.
And it's a tee. I'm a DC sports guy. I just always like supporting my team.
Okay.
And so, but other than that, no, she picked out the tie, out the suit. But I never performed in that suit, but I performed in another suit I had. I would go around town performing in a suit for a couple weeks.
I wonder how I missed
Danny in suit period. I mean, it wasn't like everywhere, but it was like a couple people. I mean, they were like, I did like ponchos. I did ponchos in a suit, and everybody was like, literally, what are you doing? It's like a show in a Mexican restaurant. Everybody was like, what is happening here? And I was like, yeah,
So you just wanted to get used to the lighter material?
Just wanted to feel what it was like.
I'd
never done a suit before. I wanted to feel I knew it was going to feel weird in the room. I'd been to a taping, so I just wanted to everything that I could control. I wanted to control going into that room. I wanted to know suit. So all I had to experience, and I'd been to a taping before, so all I had to experience that day was the actual experience. But I knew everything else that was going to happen. Basically, yeah. And then the only thing I didn't factor in was how emotional I would get, and that was the whole thing. But as of like the morning of, I did like a shower walkthrough, and like in my head of like picture it, do it, because I'd been on the stage before, so I was able to picture it. I did it in the shower, and I just like was like, do it. And about 3/4 through, I started to cry.
Picturing it.
Yeah, and so I like got out of the shower and I was like, well, that's a problem.
Well,
that's a problem. That's an issue. And so I told my girlfriend, I was like, I think we're in trouble. I think we're in big trouble. I think there's a chance I cry in the middle of this set. That is in no way about crying. There's no reason for me to cry.
Got this new act out. I cry.
Yeah, I was so scared about it. And then I was just so nervous ahead of time. I was so scared. And they handed me the mic. I was just back there, and I even did like so embarrassing. I did like the thing where I was like right before I was like, I need water. Can someone have water? And they were like, we need water. It was like I caused a whole panic. Yeah. It was so embarrassing. And I just was so nervous. And my mouth went real dry. And then they were like, handed me the mic. And they're like, welcome, Danny Jolles. And I walked out, went completely calm. Truly have never been more present in my life. Never felt more calm.
Did they have your jokes like written? Were you reading it?
You had the option to. You had the option to. I told them I didn't want it. I wanted to control everything. I was like, I've never.
Yeah, you don't want some guy fucking there.
I've just never once done my jokes with a note card. I just don't know why I would want that. It's just like, it's one of those things like, that's the thing I've done
been practicing paying my friend.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. It's like, again, I wanted to control this, and they were like, do you want things on the teleprompter? I was like, no. was like, I want nothing. I just want to say my joke.
Yeah.
If I forget it, then I'm the dumbest person on earth, but I believe I will be able to do it. I was so calm, so composed. I felt great. It was like truly one of the most magical, beautiful 7 minutes of my life. Walked off stage, started crying immediately, did not stop crying for about 2 days straight. A lot of crying.
Yeah.
I had to go through it emotionally.
How many times did you watch the set afterwards?
One time. I've watched it one time since.
Like by yourself or with
No,
people?
we did like a little party.
Yeah.
Watched it. Felt great about it.
Were you like, yeah, that's my bro joke? Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's
anytime you do any sort of taping, you're always like, it's like I have notes on it, but I also was like, I just had such a great time. It was a good experience. I love it. I'm very proud of it. Sure. I try to and a late night set is just a snippet of time. You know, it's every joke is different every time you do it. If you're present. So I'm always like, that's that version of that joke. There's also a version of that joke on the Laugh Factory website that's also great performance of it.
You have a couple good clips on the Laugh Factory's YouTube.
There's a couple, like every joke has iterations. So that was that iteration of that joke that day. People seem to like it. Some people, as is the internet, some people don't, but a lot of people really have written me very nice things to this day about it. And, but the experience was wild. It's very emotional stuff.
So kind of shifting a little bit to, because I know you're an actor as well, and you had some recent gigs working on. Can you talk about that? Like, what's the most recent project that you acted in, or if anything?
Well, I did. I was on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, so that was I ended up doing all 20 episodes of that show. Awesome. It was the best time. That was the best experience. Really, truly, not in like a Hollywood way, in like I think I'm honest about these things way. It was just a great experience. It was a great group of people that made a great TV show.
Yeah.
That is the thing where I'm most like, because I don't think stand-up has been a thing, and it's been highs and lows and everything. But being a part of Crazy X is one of these things where I'm like, that was an exceptionally amazing experience and incredibly fortunate.
How early into the show did you start on it?
I technically said 3 lines in season 1.
Okay. And your character? Can you talk about your character?
Sure. His character's name was George. No one could remember his name. He was just a little whippersnapper trying to make his way. But he said 3 lines. It was a throwaway character.
Okay.
But Rachel and I go way back. So, once I was in the world, because technically my character lived in the world, it was just always like, we don't know. There's a chance. And then I came back for an episode, and we thought it would just be that episode. And then they were like, hey, you're going to get this cutoff moment. And we think that, I sort of felt like that was going to be it. And I was like, amazing. I mean, I'm getting a moment. I mean, what is what an honor to have a moment. And at the end of that moment, I get fired. So I literally thought, I was like, okay, the character is fired.
He's gone, yeah.
I was like, but what a moment. Left the set being like that. And that was truly like a magical day. And then they were like, you're in the next episode. And I was like, what? And then the episode after that, they were like, you're fired again. And I was like, okay, now it's really over. And that became the bit, was my character kept getting fired. And every single time Danny Jolles was like, and that is me.
And I'm also fired.
And that was
art imitating life.
Episode after episode, until all of a sudden it was like, all of a sudden it was season 4. And I was like, I'm just a part of this now. And it was also nice because I really got to experience, in my mind, saying goodbye to it like 10 different times.
Yeah.
I really thought I was leaving the show a bunch of times, and not in like a bad way. And like the writers and Rachel and all those people were so kind to me. I was like, this to be a part of something great again. Like, it's very unique. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is a great TV show and special. And it was like, to be a part of something great is very unique in this town.
Did that sort of springboard either like more like live bookings for stuff, just with a credit like that?
Yeah, but nothing. Credits. The world has changed, and Instagram has become a big thing, and so I think it's definitely helped. It does nothing but help. I think the idea of you're on a TV show, you're good to go for the rest of your life is over. So I'm sorry to say. But
damn it,
I also, like anything, it's I don't know. I try not to think about like I just try to do well, and when I get bookings, when a comedy club brings me to town, I try to do the best job I can. I think at the end of the day, like, a lot of people have TV credits, It doesn't necessarily mean anything one way or the other. I think like you just I think Colbert set does more for me on the road than Crazy X. I don't fully know why. I think Crazy X has a big draw, but I think it is a show comedy club owners don't know, and so and they just go off and it's a numbers game right now.
Yeah,
from what I can tell of that world. I don't know.
I mean,
but it doesn't hurt you in any way.
Yeah.
And I got to have, I mean, there's so many people who follow me off that show who are so supportive and have switched over to my stand up and into my stuff and have like really been cool, going from musical theater to that. And, I'm like, it is. And they've been so into what I do next. And I can't thank them enough. So it's a great fan base.
Yeah,
but nothing changes your world. Nothing's like how it used to be of just like, I'm on a TV show. Look out, the world's about to open
my
up
own
for me.
show,
Yeah.
Danny.
Nobody goes. I think the problem is I think less and less people are just going to a comedy show trusting. I feel like comedy clubs are less and less just being like, this person's a funny comic who's on TV. I think people care less about that and more about like, is there a draw involved? At least some comedy clubs. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nothing changes everything is the short answer.
I wanted to highlight something from your Comedy Central clip talking about The Rock.
Sure.
And have you read the comment section?
No.
Okay. It is surprisingly enjoyable.
Oh, good.
In the sense that
I mean, this feels. I'm very scared by this.
I'm not good. Yeah,
I don't read.
This is good.
I don't read comments on the whole. I take a general look. I look at my likes, dislikes. I like to. If something, there are things I put out that are, I think sometimes, if the internet shits on something you do, I think people's immediate instinct is like the internet doesn't get me. Mm-hmm. I actually feel like there are times where, particularly Reddit, which I believe is the most honest place on the internet, for better or for worse, but I think for better, there are times where I've particularly seen Reddit find something mine and be like, they'll point something out where I'll be like, accurate,
Yeah.
There's like things people have said where I'm like, that's a fair criticism of this joke. That's a fair criticism of this sketch. I think it's kind of a cool thing. So I don't necessarily see bad comments as a bad thing. And I definitely check like, dislike to see like if something really, I'm like, oh, that's just missing. Sometimes something misses. Mm-hmm. So, but no, I've not read the comment section.
So this one, I mean, the joke is about the world of professional wrestling and the how you're not surprised that Dwayne Johnson is a terrific actor, mm-hmm. and your reasons for that, which go into explain. Yeah, people who have seen wrestling, they understand that.
Go watch the joke.
Yeah, watch the joke. I don't want to do that, but after you watch the joke, go to the comment section because you'll find, I mean, maybe at least 10 of these specific comments of like, oh, wow, this audience missed that reference. Where I've never seen comments on a YouTube video almost shit talk the audience and not the comic.
I will go.
It was crazy. I was like, wait, what just happened? They're like, how did they miss that part? It was so funny. I think it was a throwaway line that was a reference.
Yes,
to The Rock.
So there was a reference in that joke that is not for a live crowd, and I knew it going in. But there is a line of The Rock. I mean, I'm now going to explain wrestling.
There we go.
But The Rock has a incredible catchphrase he would do where he would ask somebody a question and he'd be like, why do you think this person was starting to change? He'd go, it doesn't matter what you think. And so I, in the joke, would say, another guy there, who's that guy? It doesn't matter who that guy is, which would get a huh from the crowd. But I knew online, anybody who watched professional wrestling would be like, he's making a reference.
Yeah, they hit it on the head, and they were, what I imagine was just like, oh my God, like,
yeah.
But someone typing that, Well,
it's the same.
I just thought it was
there are people who have commented on wrestling online that I think people who follow professional wrestling have gone, I don't think this person really follows professional wrestling. So it just doesn't feel true. It feels like they did some research for a piece, and that's totally okay. But more than anything else, I think people saw it and it was like, oh, this guy genuinely watches. He cares. I'm not just saying I like something to tell a joke. I like it. And I'll throw in a reference, particularly a throwaway line, which I know it never gets a big reaction. But the cool thing about a throwaway line or reference that I like doing is there are always people come up to you and be like, I got that. Mm-hmm. I got it. And I'm like, good.
Yeah.
Get it?
I loved when I read it, I kept scrolling through. I was like, oh, what is this? What? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. They're like talking shit to they're like, this audience didn't get it. Like, what's da 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 da. I was like, oh man, I've never seen a comment work like that.
Yeah. I try to appease the people.
Yeah, they were definitely appeased on that one.
Appease my marks. That's a wrestling
term. I'll have to put some a link in the show notes on all the wrestling terminology.
Don't worry about it if you're not into it. Yeah, it's too long to explain.
Okay. So at this point, I wanted to kind of segue into your podcast called Everything But the Scores.
Mm-hmm. Just started, brand new, hot off the presses.
Welcome to the podcast game.
Episode 2 out today.
And before we started, you were talking, you were apprehensive about doing a podcast.
I'd always been very nervous about doing podcasts. I just was like, I was like, I don't need to do it. I felt good about what I do, and I was like, I think I can get people in a lot of trouble, and I think that I take so much pride when I do stand-up in taking an idea and putting it out in a thoughtful way. The idea of just like laying out for an hour was very scary to me. And also, I just find myself boring. So I always was like, when I'm not doing stand-up, so I was like, I just don't want to like talk about. But then as I am a huge sports fan, and I've really just gotten so frustrated with the lack of talking about issues outside of sports in the sports world amongst anybody who does sports. And so I really felt like I brought something unique to the marketplace. So I started a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I want to give you the compliment that it felt like, for me, someone who doesn't really, fill myself with a lot of sports,
Sure.
At least the watching. I mean, Twitter, whenever sports stuff is happening, I always like, who's this guy? Okay. You'll see whatever's happening, but it felt like it took a lot of the, intimidation out of jumping in, and the situation that I thought of immediately is like when someone, if you're at a bar, they're talking about sports, like, hey, do you watch basketball or football? And I'll go, yeah, and they go, what's your team? Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh shit, I just like the sport, I don't. That's my answer, but it always had this level of like, how much do you really know, man? What is good? Like, there's a level of...
I think with anything... Look, with stand-up, there's a culture of, like, there's very intense comics who are very bro-y in nature and can be, kind of like, you want to do comedy, you got to do it hard. And there's that stuff. And then there's a lot of comics who are sort of like, yeah, well, we're here to have a good time and be really good at our craft, and we don't need to be a dick to each other. Mm-hmm. That exists that is a divide in stand-up that exists, and both sides are good, and I'm friends with both sides. But I'm personally on the side of like, I'm just here to be funny, and if you're funny, and if I see somebody working hard, that's all that matters to them, to be my friend.
Yeah.
If you're really trying to be a comic, you're my friend, and you're not being a dick. And the same. So in sports, there's the same thing where there's a lot of fans who are broy, and that 100% exists, and that can be intimidating. But there is a growing group of fans like me who are just genuinely love sports and also are into social issues. And there's so many social issues that come up when you watch sports, which is why the podcast is great. And if you don't watch sports, you should check it out, because you don't need to know sports to understand issues as intense as the Kaepernick situation, to issues as light as
what was the NBA the owner that spoke out against China,
the Rockets assistant GM, I believe.
So politics is coming in,
happens all the time
everywhere. Yeah,
and that NBA thing is an across the board business issue. Like the NBA, the cool thing about sports also, and this is why I love about sports, is you are hit with a lot of tweener issues. I think it can be very easy in society right now to go like, I feel this way about an issue. Anybody who feels the other way about it is wrong. That's how I feel. And with sports, there's a lot of tweener stuff where you're like, this player said this, which is bad. But they also said this, which is good. And I've rooted for them for 10 years. So for 9 years, I've really liked this person. And they said this, but they're claiming they meant this. And now this person's backing them who I like. But then and all of a sudden you find yourself in these tweener areas. And I love that. So I also... there's a lot of inconvenient moments in your beliefs with sports, and I love those moments. You get caught up. The Nationals win the World Series, and they very unfairly, in my opinion, because the White House has become such a political hotbed. It is very stressful that you win the most amazing. You reach the pinnacle of your career in sports, and the first thing you have to do is basically publicly say your politics. Because you either go to the White House or you don't, and that is enough for people to judge it. So, some of the team went, some of the team didn't. One of my players who I've loved this year put on a MAGA hat. I've watched this guy for 2 years. I love Kurt Suzuki. Put on a MAGA hat. Not my favorite, but I've also watched this guy play really well. I've watched this guy with his kids. I've watched this guy do a lot of stuff. So I have to deal with that. And that's a cool moment. I don't know. Sports puts you in a lot of weird spots.
Yeah.
I like it.
So this podcast will present those.
This podcast, yes. We'll present those. I think it's also a lot of like the episode that came out today, we talked about the Rally Cat, which is this amazing...
Is it the Angels? No, what is that?
Cardinals.
Oh, Cardinals.
Cardinals had so this past week there was a cat on the field. And 2 years ago, the Cardinals had a...
Wait, hold on. Sorry. There was a cat on the field?
Cat on the field.
What?
Cat on the field. Highlight, shooting star in the sports world, as I describe it. It is the most exciting moment in sports because guy runs on the field, tackled immediately. Dog runs on the field, pretty easy to catch. Cat on the field, impossible situation. Nobody can catch it. It is always a huge dilemma. It's awesome. But there was this amazing story that I talked about 2 years ago. A cat ran on the field during a Cardinals game, baseball game. They caught the cat. They got the cat off the field. Next pitch, guy hit a grand slam, or like a couple pitches later. So they literally, in the middle of the game, they're like, it's Rally Cat. He saved the team. It's this story is built around this cat. Again. And then at the end of the game, they're like, so we don't have the cat. We lost the cat. We don't know where the cat is. Cat gets found by this humane shelter. Team is building merch around this cat. They're like, we are so excited. We're going to adopt this cat. We're going to adopt the cat. It's going to live in our clubhouse. They have billions of dollars. I mean, this cat's going to live like a king.
How do they know it's the same cat?
Marking on his shoulder, the place claimed.
What? It's not important.
I mean, you bring up a good point. I don't know. I guess they said it and it looked the same and everybody moved on. And then the
that other cat's out there somewhere going like, that could have been my life.
Well, so this cat, Humane Society goes, we're not necessarily going to give it to you guys. And a legal battle erupts for the rights to this cat. It is a crazy story. The Cardinals... The cat had a lawyer. The Humane Society did not want to give the cat to the Cardinals. The Cardinals were like, we'd like the cat. We don't see what the problem is. Anybody can adopt it. Why can't we? Huge battle, legal battle erupted over this cat. And that's a great story. That is not intense in any way, but also wild and fun. And
John Grisham, if you're out there.
It's an amazing story. It is an amazing story that is truly exciting.
Called Save the Cat.
It's great. And you learn how to write a mediocre script. Formulaic. You read Save the Cat, but then you have to break it up a little bit. Or every script sounds the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's also stories like that. So as intense a story as, the Trent Williams one, which I did the first one, which is a guy, fighting a team after a cancer situation, to as light as a cat.
Great.
It's a really fun...
A little bit something, for everyone.
A little bit something for everyone. And the cool thing is every week there's new stories.
Yeah.
So I put out an episode today. I literally already have 2 things circled from today that I was like, ooh, that'd be great.
Cool.
So now you're interesting. And nobody will talk about. And I will put on ESPN and not one person will mention these very interesting issues.
Wow. You're like the underground, whatever, the counterculture provocateur podcast. I don't know. You mean it?
But there's a chance that maybe I'm the only person that's actually interested in this. That is a perfectly valid thing.
Oh.
And I have thought about that. There is a chance that most sports fans do not care about these stories, and I am just the only one that cares.
Yeah.
I do wonder that sometimes. Am I the only person who cares about like these interesting sides and who these people are and the stories that happen around them? And are other people just into the game? I can't tell. I know that I personally find it interesting.
Well, I mean, that's all that matters. If you make it, you can make anything interesting funny.
Sure. We like to hope.
But you can't. Barry Neal, I interviewed him last week. He said you can make anything interesting funny, but you can't make everything funny interesting. So just start, he teaches stand up. So he's like, think about just having something interesting to say, and then we can figure out what the jokes are from there.
I think I agree with that. It's interesting. It's an interesting thought. I'm going to think about it.
Might not be funny.
I'm going to think about it on the ride home.
Okay.
It's a sure.
You can buy his book. Okay. So I love talking about the Rally Cat. My God.
It's a great story.
Yeah, I'm going to go home and Google that. What was the first time you performed stand-up comedy?
Stand-up comedian. High school was the first time I ever performed. Performed at a place called Wiseacres, which was a comedy club in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. I was like 16 or so. Did not go well. I basically did stand-up once a year for a long time. Since like high school through college, I would do it like once or twice a year. Senior year, I started getting a little bit more into it, but I was doing sketch and improv. I was really into sketch and improv. Okay. And acting. I was also like, I went to NYU for theater. I was like very into being like an actor. And then at a certain point, just started doing it more and more. And then, I saw Kevin Hart tape his first special. And that was a real turning point for me. Because I was just like.
Where do you tape it?
I taped it at the NYU Skirball Center. It was like free. Like my friend was literally like, do you want to go see this comic? This guy's like taping a special. I guess he was in Soul Plane. That's how we knew him.
Yeah.
He was in Soul Plane. He was in 40-Year-Old Virgin. I was like, check him out.
Cool.
And we went, and it was like right in the middle of like me getting like kind of close to graduation. It was right around the time where I was like, oh, it doesn't matter how good an actor you are if you can't audition. And like Hollywood doesn't. Already I was like, oh, nobody cares. How I look is not good. Nobody seems to care about like a generic, just nothing, not that good looking Jew. Just not appealing.
You're absolutely right.
It was just, what it was. It was just like,
Sam, think of a compliment to say something to him.
Yeah, no, it's like, that's true. It's just like I was sending my stuff to agents.
Questions?
Agents were just like, see me and being like, because we do these showcases, agents would just see me and be like,
oh, through the acting program.
Yeah, and they just were like, no. What do I? No. We got a bunch of you. I am a kid actor. A kid actor growing up will take my spot. They already have like 3 who already have credits. There's no reason to go with me.
Okay.
So I just was like, how do you even break into this industry? And then I watched Kevin Hart tape his special. And he was just so funny. And he was so undeniable on that stage. Like I just remember watching him being like, I literally being like, I don't know who this guy is. But like put him in everything.
Yeah, that was great.
Put him in all the things. If you're casting something, put this guy in it. Like he's so funny. And I just left being like, well, if I can do that, that might be a way to like be better. Why don't I do that and like actually work towards something than like just hope to act? So I just like, I think I quit improv the next day. I was like out. I started doing stand up every night. And that's when I got serious.
Wow.
Which is when I really consider it. I think every comic
you started in New York as an open micer.
Yeah.
That was what were the rooms that you were going to? Or the coffee shops, whatever.
Horrible. I mean, at any place. And then I ran a show at the Parkside Lounge for a long time. Then I ran at UCB East. Then I ran at the Pit. So I ran shows. And I also ran a show at like this like weird coffee shop. So I ran a bunch of shows. And that was how like, I got like in front of real crowds and got to know the real comics. And I do tons of open mics. It just started. I mean, I had no in, I had nothing.
And then how long did you do stand up out there till you moved to LA?
2.5 years? 3?
3?
3 with like a little bit of some bonus, but yeah, about 3 years.
And then you came to LA, and have you been running shows here, or?
When I first came out here, I did.
Okay.
I ran a show with Rami. Called like something like That Other Show or something like that. And we did that for a while. And then I ran I do like every now and then, but not really.
Like some one-off shows.
But I was such a producer in New York, and I sort of became known as that. And one comic in particular, I remember on stage kind of like said something like that. It was like a show where like everybody tells a joke type thing, and a comic said something like, well, Danny's only here because he runs shows. And I remember being like really hurt by that. And so I was like, when I came to LA, I was like, I will not be known as somebody who runs shows. Hurt my feelings.
Wow.
Yeah, I hurt my feelings on stage. And he was right, partially right. I was like 100%. So I think it was like, that's it.
All
Went
right.
to LA and I was like, done.
I'm not.
But yeah, I ran a ton of shows in New York. And that's how I got like a lot of stage time.
Do you think the acting obviously influenced just your stage presence and your comfortability? So, and then I feel like tying that in with shows in New York and like in the open mic scene in New York, especially, I feel like it's a little more in your face in a way.
tough.
It's got a little more stank
But it's also
on it.
good because I think it beat a lot of the cuteness out of me. I think I could have gotten away with a lot of like just being cute and like, you know, showmany. And New York really beat that out of me.
It's definitely not there.
And there,
It's definitely not there. Even the off and on, I was in New York this last 2 years. Just I'd be there 2 weeks at a time and come back and forth. I'd noticed that the type of performing I was doing that might have had a little more act outs or movement on stage or different things. It wasn't appreciated, but it was not what everyone else.
it's not the New York style.
No.
And then, I think New York and LA, I think there's a nice in between the two. Because I still like to sell it. And I still like to sell my jokes. And that's who I am as a person. But I also think New York really got me early, just was so good at being like, knock that off, write the joke. And so by the time I came out to LA, I felt like I had a really good foundation in my writing and who I was as a writer and as a comic. And then I slowly came back into like, but like, who am I?
What do you think that sort of lens was that you had found? Like, if you could describe it as a character.
I knew that I liked making a point. And so it's not even like a character. It's honestly who I am as a person. The truth is, stand-up is like, the key to learning your voice in stand-up is really figuring out who you are as a human, for the most part. I think for most people. So very quick, the thing it took me forever to learn was like, when I rant in real life, that's what I do. I go off on these tangents and then I like have to come back. And I was like, when I'm on stage and I get going on a topic, it's really fun. It feels natural. I like doing it. And then I like convincing you I'm right. And when I started doing that, which took me years to figure out, I was like, that's what I like to do. I like to start a point and finish a point. So that was like the thing I figured out. And I figured out this like style of like tying this to this, to this, to this, to this, so that
Like
this
just
comes
different
back.
rants,
Yeah. And it was like, and that was really cool. And so once I learned that about myself and really learned like set a punch, set a punch, set a punch, I then was able to come back to LA and sort of be like, okay, but I was like, you can do a little, you're allowed to be you. I was almost like stopping me from being me because I was like, don't get too big.
Yeah.
Like knock it off. So I wasn't even fooling myself because I was so like New York jokey. And then they really beat that out of me. And then in LA sort of let it come back out. And then now I'm.
Well, thank God.
You think, but who knows? Who knows if this is right? New York might have been right. But now you go back. But then the thing is also is like New York has that reputation. But now I go back to New York and nobody has an issue with what I do because I think it's flushed out enough where they can see like it's all about joke writing. All New York comics want to see is that you have a punchline. Sometimes in LA, people can be a little like the crowds are so like in LA, they're just very excited. And so I think sometimes, you can sort of, particularly like if you're just in like these alty side rooms, you can get just very used to that. And New York is very much a club scene. So I think you just have to like adjust.
What's a better audience in your analogy between cats and dogs?
In a world where it's so bros are dogs, hipsters are cats.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen the joke. I think hipsters always want to be one step ahead of you, which is fun and exciting and very cool to do. Like the wrestling joke is so fun to do in LA because everybody is like, ugh. And then by the end, they're like, fair point. That's very exciting for me to do. But with that said, on the whole, a bro's just going to go with you on the ride. And that's very like, it's nice. It's nice when you go on stage and there isn't, it's almost like doing magic where somebody's like, I'm going to try to figure out how to do to like figure out your trick. It isn't that like that isn't fun and that I like to think a good enough magician where you can try to figure out my trick. I'm still going to trick you. Mm-hmm. But it's really nice when somebody's like, take me on your ride. You know, like when I do a rant, like I just feel a crowd be like, all right, we're in. Take us on the ride. Sometimes with like very alty rooms, there's a little bit more of like, you're not going to trick us. We know exactly what you're going to do.
That's a Hedberg joke.
Well, it's just like a little bit of like, like when I do like a rest or even like the show your work joke, you know, has a part, you know, it's partially defending like bad opinions from our past. There's a lot of judgment in an alti room when I get to that part. They get particularly excited by the end because I change their minds. But in the middle, there is just a lot of like, what are you talking about? Here comes, and they think I'm going to be one of these guys who's like, what? You can't say that there's someone to, and like they think it's going to be that, and it's not. But I feel that judgment, whereas, you know, in a bro, they're just like, all right, explain it. They're just very open-minded. Alt crowds can be a little like, we know where this is going and we disapprove. Oh, different. But that moment's like a little like annoying.
Okay. I'm glad I asked that because I was curious based on that. You know, I'm like, I don't know where he lands on this.
I like anybody that's willing to listen. My only thing I don't like in a crowd is if I feel like if you ever cut off, first off, if you ever stop a joke before it ends with like a comment, I think that is so unfair. You know, it's like reading a book and like stopping the first like 10 pages being like, this character is so one-dimensional.
Oh, like, you're saying as someone who like heckles?
Well, or even like gets upset by a joke.
Oh, from that.
And you're like, and you're like, wait, but yeah, the character's one-dimensional now. Wait till the end of the book. He's going to learn something.
Yeah.
He's going to grow. It's like sometimes with a joke, you kind of have to put, you know, with that joke in particular, like sometimes with a joke, I'll put myself in like this is what I thought at this point, or you know what, I was struggling with this, and like there can be judgment at that moment, and you're always like, hey, wait till it's over.
I guess I never thought about it at that point, but what I love about stand-up is the immediacy of what you're saying and getting from the audience. It also works on their side.
Yeah,
their immediate reaction to what you're saying is it's in the same time. If they're paying attention, at least. It's
great. No, it's super.
So
and
maybe
that's part of the fun of comedy is that get back and forth and that endless like, are they on board? No, they're off board. Wait, no, they're on board. And like, I love that feel. I mean, that was like that Conan that you saw was very much like they're on board, they're off board, they're on board. But me also going, okay, I'll come back and get you. Blah blah blah. I'll come back and get you. It isn't that I don't love that, but you tell me ideal audience. I love it if you just came with me the whole time. Yeah. You know, I don't love having to stop to come get you, but I'll come get you. I am a sad bomber. I don't bomb well. I like refuse to give up on the crowd.
One of my favorite questions I like to ask is about the life billboard. If you had a billboard on Sunset and La Cienega, you can have anything on it, a picture, image, phrase on the billboard. What would you have on your billboard?
In like, as like an advertisement for my show of my life,
or your show, or just a message to people, or anything. I've had people go, it'd be like a movie poster of me in the middle, and it's like the, you know,
it's definitely not that.
They've described that.
I don't know. I mean, I'd probably do something lame. Honestly, like I'm a pretty lame guy, but that was just like, you know, I'd be like, hey, yeah, something like be nice to each other.
Okay.
So much of it's just like people being dicks to each other, and I'm always like, be nice. A lot of it, yeah. How much time in LA? I'm just like, and particularly in stand-up. Sometimes in stand-up, I'm just like, hey, why aren't we all being nice to each other? What are we doing here? So I don't know. I'd probably be nice to each other. Maybe go 1-0 today. Think if I could see that.
Oh, I feel like that's.
I could potentially give a little
great.
Little go 1-0 today. Let's go.
Yeah.
I could. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I don't
like
know.
That.
I don't have anything, but I wouldn't have anything big. I would just. I also think like I have a real philosophy of like you got to worry about yourself. You can't really like try to, you know. I think a lot of people are trying to like fix all of like comedy, or like I see it a lot with it. Like sometimes people in entertainment where they're like trying to fix all of entertainment, but then you work with them and they're like not nice. And you're like, hey, why don't you just work on this? And then like worry about fixing the whole thing, but like you're not nice.
Yeah.
If you want to fix the industry, like maybe you be nicer. and then maybe like it'll be better. There's a lot of that. It's like, so I always am trying to like just be like, hey, if I'm a nice experience for people in comedy, then maybe I make comedy a little bit better as a community. That's good. That's all I can actually affect, right?
Do you think? Well, if you were, would that be one of the biggest like pieces of advice? Is like, guys, just be nicer to each other.
It's definitely. I mean, I don't know if it's advice. I guess it's advice. Yeah, be nice, but don't do it for like
obvious.
Yeah, it's like be nice. I don't know. It's like it's obvious. It's like, but the bitter thing I think is more advice. Like don't get bitter, because there's nice people who get bitter in this town.
Is there a checklist to see? Am I bitter? What are the 3 things you're like? You might be a bitter comedian.
Sure, I wish I.
If you go to the Comedy Store potluck,
you go to potluck. There's nothing wrong going to potluck. Potluck's a fun time.
No, but there's more.
If you go to potluck and you look at the list and you go, oh,
you might be.
That's no good. You're going to potluck and you're just like, oh, I get to hang out with a bunch of people, comics I know for
it's fun.
A couple hours. That's nice. I like there's nothing wrong going potluck. I think it's just anger. It's judgment. It's like judging other comics. Yeah, don't be bitter. It's probably my more so advice than like anything else.
That's great. So where can people follow the podcast? Is it all? Is there a handle for that, or what's
everything
how
but
can we watch it?
Everything but the scores with Danny Jolles is on it's on iTunes and all the other things. But if you type that in, you'll find it. In general, just follow me on social media, because that is, as we talked about earlier, that is the currency.
Okay.
Of the world right now. People don't realize how much that means to comics. To follow us on social media, it really means a lot. So at Danny Jolles on all things, but that's like, I don't think people, Jolles is my last name. People don't realize, I think, how huge it is for us. I didn't really realize until very recently just how like there's a lot of people who it doesn't matter how funny you are. They're just looking at numbers. And it's why I think a lot of people are having a bad experience with comedy right now as an audience member, because sometimes people are doing shows who shouldn't be. And it's like, you have a bad experience at a comedy club.
You don't go back.
It's tough to get you back. Yeah. So it's like, I always get very mad at comics when I'm like, even that Conan show, I was like, we're losing 15 audience members right now if we don't fix this.
Yeah. Like you saw what the repercussion of it would be.
Yeah. The repercussion is those people even being like, oh, comedy.
They're like, how the fuck did we get here?
Yeah. Yeah. Versus like you want them to leave being like, oh, I don't really want to come back.
Yeah.
I want to see more stand-up. So I don't know. But yeah, just follow us on social media. It really helps a lot.
All right, guys. What did you think? That was quite an episode, huh? Don't forget to check out Danny's podcast, Everything But the Scores, and follow him on all the social media and all that jazz. I'll put a link to the description in the bottom where you can follow him and check out the podcast. You've been listening to Sam J Has Questions. I am Sam J. I got no more questions. Talk to you guys next week. Sam